Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values.
Love is something that somebody learns for themselves and is not forced, unless you're part of some weird cult. You see, we want to give good information for people to make good decisions, but not force them. That's not patriotism, but rather propaganda sprinkled with a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome.
In today's channel, we are diving into one of the most jaw-dropping political developments, lightening up headlines and sparking outrage across the nation. Stephen Miller, a name synonymous with headline ideology, just declared a radical plan that would make forced patriotism the law of the land. We are talking about stripping federal funding from schools that doesn't push what he calls American values, banning so-called communist ideologies, and yes, even shutting down the Department of Education entirely. But here's the thing. This isn't just a policy shift. This is a blueprint straight from the authoritarian playbook. Mandatory patriotism, banned ideas, state-approved history. That is not democracy. That is indoctrination. And the public, they are not staying quiet. Social media is exploding. Historians, teachers, parents, and even vegetarians are calling this what it is, a dangerous step towards state-controlled thought. So what does this mean for the future of American education, freedom of thought, and your kids? Stick around. We are breaking it all down with facts, receipts, and the real history they don't want taught in schools. Let's get into it.
It is child abuse to change a child's gender, particularly if you do not inform the parents. In other words, if a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old goes to school, or a 7-year-old goes to school, and the teacher tries to turn the boy into a girl or the girl into a boy, that is child abuse. And this administration is treating that as child abuse. And it is a gross violation of parental rights.
Hey, Stephen, what schools are trying to change boys into girls and girls into boys? Hogwarts? This is the same crap that Trump tried to push during the campaign when he said that public schools were performing gender reassignment surgeries on kids without their parents' knowledge or consent. I just gotta ask, is there anyone out there who actually believes this is happening? Anyone?
Stephen Miller is going to be our why didn't we just let him go to art school situation.
And the only thing Americans want to hear from Kamala Harris is an apology.
Stevie, the only thing we need from you is an apology for being a racist prick for your entire life. See, he was an outsider at Temple because he didn't go to private school and he was a racist. And he was an outsider at his public school because he was a conservative who said mean shit to people who didn't look like him. And then wrote op-eds railing on other students for having sex before the age of 18, which was a wonderful way to let everyone know you're not getting laid. And if you understand the culture that Stephen grew up in, that he wasn't the one who got to do the cool stuff. This guy is an ideologue who's been left out and now has power, and that makes him the scariest of every single one of Trump's goons.
Well, that crypt keeper for fascism, Stephen Miller, just said that kids will be forced to love America, be taught to be patriots, and that schools will not get federal funding unless they stop teaching so-called communist ideology. Oh, and they're planning to shut down the Department of Education entirely. Let me be crystal clear. This isn't normal policy, no matter how they try to paint it. This is the handbook for state-run propaganda. Mandatory patriotism, banned ideologies, loyalty pledges, that's not freedom. That's what authoritarian regimes do to control what the next generation thinks. And when the government decides what version of history is acceptable and punishes schools that don't fall in line, that's not education, that's indoctrination. And let's not forget, this same playbook was used by regimes like Nazi Germany, Franco Spain, and modern-day North Korea. They all demanded love for the nation, erased dissenting views, and criminalized anything they labeled anti-state. You want kids to love their country? Let them learn the full history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You want civic values? Teach them how to think critically and how to vote, how to hold leaders accountable, not how to blindly pledge loyalty to whatever political ideology is in power. We don't need patriotic obedience. We need educated citizens badly.
If you want to know who's really running this country, who's the real president of this country, it's this guy, Stephen Miller, the architect behind every bad thing that you see happening in this country. This is the guy who's the president of the United States. And there has been time and time again during this administration where reporters have asked Donald Trump about something, maybe the bombing in Russia that killed a top general, a whole bunch of things, and the president knew nothing about it. Donald Trump is the president in name only. He's only the president because he likes the title and the pomp and circumstance. He plays golf, he pretends he's in charge, and then a couple times a day they bring him down, they sit him down, and they hand him executive orders to sign. And these executive orders he knows nothing about. He doesn't know what's in them. He was not whatsoever involved in crafting them. Say what you will about Joe Biden and any kind of decline he had. He was still involved in the day-to-day governance of this country. When they crafted an executive order, he was involved in writing it and deciding what was in it. Donald Trump doesn't even know what's in these things. He just signs them and goes about his way. He's yielding the governance of this country to these authoritarian Christian right wackos. And for that, he gets to pretend he's the President of the United States. He gets to ride in Air Force One. He gets to have Hail to the Chief played for him. He gets the pomp and circumstance. They do all the work, and they do all the evil we're seeing.
Just got done filming the Stephen Miller deep dive, and I didn't include this because I was trying to be for real. But spray painting of the head. I did not realize how often this was happening, especially during Donald Trump's first term. I had no idea that we were spraying on our widow's peak. This was on a Sunday. This was on a Thursday. What is that? What is that on top of his head? And I say that about our president at least 30 times a day. But you two, what is that? It looks like that magnetic sand in those games where you would drag around a magnetic thing and it would make a drawing. It doesn't look right. It looks dusty. Not even the right color. Why did he think that looked better? Look how silly he looks. Whether he's bald or has a painted on widow's peak, he looks like the same evil gremlin that he always has looked like. It's nothing for him. It does nothing for him. He just looks silly. What if he had started sweating? What if he had started sweating on the TV? He would have had a complete Rudy Giuliani moment there. What is wrong with this administration and their hair and their hairlines? They all have the same issues. Is this what being a bigot gets you?
Are y'all starting to realize how much fucking bigger this is than just Donald Trump?
Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values.
Stephen Miller is only 39 years old. Notice how quickly MAGA stopped talking about freedom and liberty and replaced it with shit like that. This is no longer about freedom. This is about dominance, submission, indoctrination. Daddy's home. Fall in line or suffer the consequences. And the word patriot, the way they use it, doesn't even apply to the founders of this country anymore. Reckless rebels who bucked authority and started a revolution. No. Those are not patriots. Patriots today are people who show blind loyalty, mindless drones who worship without asking any questions. Listen to Stephen Miller talk. Look at how much money this racist bitch has raised. This is so much bigger than Donald Trump. And like I said, Stephen Miller is not even 40 yet. Marco Rubio and Elon Musk are in their early 50s. JD Vance is 40. Jim Banks is 45. They are all capable of horrific atrocities. This is bigger than Donald Trump. Fight today, fight tomorrow, and be ready to fucking fight for a long time.
Stephen Miller goes absolutely nuclear on Kamala Harris, y'all. I guess she tried to do some speech, and he just rips her apart. And stay to the end because listen to what Caroline Levitt said. It's priceless. Y'all like the video right here. It really helps the channel out. And check this out.
Last night, Kamala Harris delivered her first major speech after losing the election. She attacked Trump personally, attacked the policies. Any comment from the White House on that?
Well, I think it was a great reminder to the American people of just how blessed we all are that the leader sitting in the Oval Office today is President Donald Trump and not President Kamala Harris. It was a helpful reminder of just what a travesty and a tragedy that would have been. It would have been the end of America. And it gives me a chance to bring this whole thing home. If we continued on this road of radical regulation, choking off American energy, sending our supply chains to foreign countries, taxing our economy to death, pushing this cancerous woke ideology on our children, ending merit, ending scientific innovation, ending public safety, allowing, everyone goes to the stores these days, everything's locked up, criminals roam free.
Crazy.
Law-abiding citizens under the previous administration were punished while gangbangers were given red carpet treatment. Democrats, of course, are still giving gangbangers red carpet treatment. And then the border invasion. If those policies had continued, it would have been the end of the American Republic. And the only thing Americans want to hear from Kamala Harris is an apology for joining Joe Biden, remember she was the border czar, joining Joe Biden in aiding and abetting the invasion of our country. And we're never going to stop talking about this because what they did to this country is unforgivable. It is an eternal stain on the Democrat Party. Every day we read another story. Every day we arrest another alien they let into this country who woman within an inch of her life, who mom, who dad, who trafficked into this country, who trafficked this country, who are responsible for slaughtered Americans. And I don't know what's broken in the Washington press corps, that none of that moves them emotionally. The only thing that gets them exercised is, do we need to have more trials for porters? We need to have more trials for bangers. We need to have more trials for illegal alien invaders, even though Congress and the Constitution clearly say that you can expel invaders and illegal aliens quickly, efficiently, and properly. This president has literally saved America, and I could not be prouder. I could not be prouder, as I know Caroline feels the same way, to come every single day to this building where we have a leader sitting in office whose first, last, and every thought is the safety, prosperity, security, and sovereignty of the citizens. That's an important word, people. Citizens of this republic. Thank you all.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your time.
Right here.
Thank you, everyone. And just to add on the Kamala Harris point, I think I speak for everyone at the White House. We encourage Kamala Harris to continue going out and do speaking engagements. You'll hear from the president at 11 o'clock. See you guys later.
Family fled anti-Semitic violence in Eastern Europe and arrived in America with only about $8 to their name. This man is Stephen Miller, and he went on to become the architect of one of America's most hardline immigration policies. But that's not even the wildest part of this story. Stephen Miller's grandfather, Wolf Glasser, escaped the pogroms of Belarus in 1903 and made his way to the United States. He then opened a small clothing store in Johnston, Pennsylvania. This allowed the Glasser family to become a Jewish immigration success story. The Glasser department store grew so successful that it ended up employing thousands of people and led to wealth status for the entire Glasser family. The Glasser family belonged to a very conservative synagogue in Pennsylvania that had very important connections with the heritage of the Jewish faith and support of Israel as a state. This conservative background, fast forward, now Stephen Miller is born in Santa Monica, California, and he especially loves conservative talk radio, which pretty much integrated itself in him at a very early age. He went on to later study at Duke University and then work under Jeff Sessions. After that, he joined the Trump campaign in 2015 and was an integral role in Trump's speeches. During the Trump administration's first presidential appointment, he was the engineer of the Muslim travel ban and the enforcer of the families being separated at the border. You could say he believed in America first, but not the America that allowed his Jewish immigrant family to get into this country and succeed. Fast forward to today, where he's become Trump's deputy chief of staff and the Department of Homeland Security's advisor. And this is where it gets really wild. So according to the Signal Gate and the Signal chats, he wasn't just the person that was in on the conversation that was taking place on an unsecured network about military movements and decisions, but he was the deciding voice. Yes, you heard me right. According to the Signal chats, every indication implies that his voice was the final deciding factor on what the operation would entail and when it would be done, and the go-ahead. We did not hear from Trump personally on that Signal chat. Maybe Trump was in the room. We don't really know. But as far as we know, he was the deciding voice. When someone raised their objections, he quickly said, no, that's what the president wanted. But the president himself never actually gave the order. The order came from, you heard it, Stephen Miller. So if that wasn't worrisome enough, and we still don't know what's happened to Kilmar Albrego Garcia, I am worried that he is no longer with us. I don't know that for sure, but the fact that the Trump administration is refusing to return him and hasn't already is highly suspicious. But the fact that this man is making so many of these decisions, and it seems like with unlimited authority to speak for the president, I find that very disconcerting, and I wish that more people were talking about it. I haven't heard a lot of reporters talking about it, but I would really like to hear some and what they have to say. And also more of a deep dive into who this man is and where he's from, because I couldn't find too much information about him other than what I did find. This man's family fled anti-Semitic violence in Eastern Europe and arrived in America with only about $8 to their name. This man is Stephen Miller, and he went on to become the architect.
Look, let's not waste time pretending this is some kind of traditional, conversative education policy. What Stephen Miller is proposing, mandatory patriotism, banning ideologies, defunding schools that doesn't comply, and dismantling the Department of Education, isn't just another item in a party platform. It's a full-scale authoritarian rebrand of the American education system. Let's unpack this, because what is being proposed isn't substitute and is not new. Requiring kids to love America isn't education. It's not even patriotism in the true sense. It's forced loyalty, and when you tie school funding, which already varies drastically by region, to ideological complex, you are not lifting up children, you are weaponizing their curriculum. It's not just about what the kids are learning, it's about who gets to decide what counts as acceptable knowledge. When politicians get to say this version of history is okay, this one isn't, we have crossed a line. That is not curriculum reform, that is information control. And let's be clear, phrases like communist ideology in this context are being used so broadly they lose all meaning. In practice, what that means is banning any discussion of systemic racism, social justice, LGBTQ plus rights, labor movement, and basically any criticism of capitalism or American historical wrongs. And when you start banning either entire frameworks of thought, you are not promoting freedom, you are shutting it down. This is the very definition of state propaganda. It's not enough to say we want kids to be proud of their country. Sure, who doesn't want that? But pride means nothing if it's based on lies. Real patriotism is not blind obedience. It's the courage to confront your country failures because you believe it can do better. Real love of country comes from knowing its whole story. The triumphs, the tragedies, the contradictions. What Millie and others are pushing is not love, it's control. It's fears of critical thinking. It's fear that if kids learn the truth about slavery, about imperialism, about economic equality, and they might ask questions, they might challenge power, and that is what this is really all about. Not protecting children, not improving schools. It's about protecting political power. Let's talk about President here. Nazi Germany made loyalty to the Führer a subject in schools. Franco Spain mandated Catholic nationalist ideology and banned regional languages. In South Korea, children sang songs of praise to the leader before they can even read. All those regimes claim it was about national pride. All of them claimed they were saving the youth, and all of them crushed dissent under the boot of government-sanctioned education. That is an exaggeration. This is historical fact, and if you think America is immune to those tactics just because we have the word freedom in our pledge, you haven't been paying attention. This is not a left versus right issue. This is about the future of democracy, because democracy requires educated citizens. It requires people who can question authorities, who can analyze sources, who can understand nuisance. You don't get that by telling students what to think. You get that by teaching them how to think. And by the way, let's talk about the Department of Education. Yes, it's not perfect. It's a bureaucratic agency like any other, but its mission to ensure equal access to quality education, especially for low-income families, students with disability, and marginalized communities. You dismantle that. You are not decentralized power. You are handling it to governors and school boards who are already trying to whitewash history and ban books. That is not local empowerment, that is ideological gatekeeping. Don't forget, this comes at a time when teachers are being criminalized for discussing race and gender, liberals are being emptied of books deemed controversial, and students are being surveilled for expressing political opinions. This is all part of a pattern, and now they want to tie school funding, which is often the only source in poor communities, to how obedient your curriculum is. That is not just unethical, that is immoral. That scary part, this will resonate with a lot of people because it's dressed up in the language of values, patriotism, tradition, protecting kids, but underneath is about silencing dissent, erasing history, and producing a generation that equals loyalty with truth. So what should we be doing instead? We should be doubling down on civil education, not purging it. Teach kids how government works, how protests shape history, how laws are made. Teach them the Bill of Rights, all of it, not just the Second Amendment. Let them read Malcolm X and Reagan. Let them study socialism and capitalism. Let them make up their own minds. That is what freedom looks like. And yeah, let them learn about slavery, Jim Crow, Japanese internment camps, the genocide of Native Americans, and the role that race, class, and gender have played in shaping this country. Because kids aren't fragile, they are curious, and when you give them the full story, they don't hate America, they see it as complexity and they want to make it better. What Stephen Miller is proposing is the opposite of that. It's not about education, it's about obedience. It's not about unity, it's about conformity. And if we let this slide, if we let politicians dictate what truths are acceptable and which are punishable, we are handing over the minds of the next generation to a regime of fear. So no, this isn't just another policy proposal. This is a warning shot, and if we don't push back now, loudly, relentlessly, and with actual moral clarity, we risk losing not just academic freedom, but democratic freedom itself. If you found this commentary valuable, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more bold, fact-driven breakdowns on the issue that matter. And I will see you in the next one.